12/22/24, Kom Ombo Edfu. This day was not as relaxing as the last two because of the travel involved. I woke at 5 a.m. to do a sunrise meditation until 6, taking a boat back to the city side. We drove to Kom Ombo where Horus and Sobek share a temple. The shared temple represents Sobek, the crocodile of the Nile, and Horus, the bird of the sky, as a dual nature of the higher and lower self. It's the only temple in Egypt where there's a dual dedication, I think. Speaking of duality, I had 2 books with me on the trip I forgot to mention. It was J.A. West's Traveler's Key to Ancient Egypt and S.A. Schwaller's Temple of Man. I believe it was the idea of Schwaller that esoterically the mummified crocodile displayed the taming of what Sobek symbolized, which was the lower primal desires and fears. This is a Greek-style temple. To pick up where we left off, after the birth of Horus, I'm embodying the full hero's journey mode. The objective of Horus is to kill the evil Uncle Set, who represents darkness, to appease the mother Isis and avenge the father Osiris. I make a side note here. I can't help but think of the perverse way that we in the West, by way of Freud and his disciples, and of course with the help of the institution of the church, perceive especially motherly figures. To see the life of every man through his relationship with his mother, I feel, is more of a personal Freud projection than it is an appropriate scope of psychology to see everything through. I think the sophisticated Greek idea of Oedipus was hijacked and overemphasized to be twisted into this theory that has gotten extremely carried away with itself over time, along with another theory I think that is also now in over its head. I've said before, I think it was Nietzsche who has a quote that I think is really hilarious. It says, I could be paraphrasing, but he said Darwin was absolutely right about life, ... in England. And I would say that Freud perhaps was absolutely right about life, ... in Europe. That brings me to another side note, actually, regarding this. Sometimes I say the gods to describe the Osiris, Isis, Horus, or the names Osiris, Isis, and Horus, but that's mostly for brevity because the ancient people didn't refer to them as gods, and it might be worth diving into elsewhere, but these also weren't their names. And so some of them are transliterations, some of them are mistranslations, some of them are just approximations, like Osiris's name wasn't Osiris, and Thoth's name wasn't Thoth either, but we can come back to that. Anyway, back to the journey. I'm imagining myself having a meeting with Sobek, the crocodile, who was one of the most revered figures, as the croc is and always has been. I like to imagine I was coming for a politicking session, what the mafia might call a sit-down with the croc, so this dual temple of Horus and Sobek. I arrive, I request kind of an audience, I petition him, and I say, the animated version would be, hey, you knew my dad, you know me, I came to avenge my father's death, Set's going to die, I came here neutral territory to our shared house where I'm going to let you know that I'm trying to put this guy back into the reincarnation cycle. You need to stay out of the business. I'd like the blessing, etc., etc. That's not the official story or myth, but that's my comical rendition. I sat for an hour in a meditation here. It was early morning, so there was no Nile River cruise people in the area. I left, though, before noon because it was over an hour to Edfu, which is a temple primarily dedicated to Horus. So this is the next level. I'm feeling like I had to sit down with Sobek. I'm not going to be sharing the glory with him. This is my own dedication. I'm the big dog here. It was getting really hot in the day. And I think the Temple of Horus at Edfu is the largest intact facade in Egypt. I'm not too sure. But I was in good spirits. I have the hero's journey embodiment. I'm in my own stomping grounds, my own temple. And I have the whole story laid out on the walls about how I killed Set, and that's my legend and lore and manifestation. And in the story, Set, he knows I have the falcon eyes, so he knows I'm all-seeing. So he turns himself into a hippo, and he hides underneath the water in the River Nile, just like I said he would, because the streets were talking, but I already cleared that up with the crocodile, if you remember that. And I had to sit down. I told him that I see everything. I got the eye, sees all. I'm coming your way. You can hide under the water, which when Set hides under the water, that's him hiding in the lower natured self, which would be animal desires, fear, these type of lower Dantean type of emotions. Set actually turns himself into a hippo and then hides underwater. And he did that in the myth. But I had the boat on hand. I grabbed Hathor. She wants to come drive the boat. I got the spear, but the shit was way too personal, so I grabbed my mom, Isis. She still has the beef, since her brother-in-law killed her husband. So they're driving. I'm stabbing in the water, poking the hippo. There's a nice depiction of this whole story on the wall. This is the funny version, but it's a struggle. I'm jabbing him, stab him a bunch of times. He gets a shot off at me, takes out one of my eyes, so Horus only has one eye. But I think that is the trading of the eye to overcome all the lower natured impulses. And when you lose one of the eyes, you just have a single point vision, or a single eye focused. Maybe it's a single point focused mind. And afterward, Horus has all of his people set up into pieces, just like he cut up Osiris. But animated story aside, this place was really powerful, actually. It was the sacrum, and then the plexus at Edfu, the sacrum at Kom Ombo, which is the vital energy center. I think of plexus meaning the network or paradigm or pattern, and we call it the solar plexus. So it's the network or paradigm of the sun. The two are pretty closely related as the solar sun, S-U-N, or S-O-N, and plexus, meaning paradigm or pattern, which comes from pater, P-A-T-E-R, which means father. The Latin, we also call the sun the father, and the father is the pattern man, which I've also been heard used to describe Adam the Cadmon, the divine Adam, or I've also heard Moses described as the pattern man as well. That was a complete tangent, but the solar plexus is associated with the human will in pretty much every system, Indian, Chinese, Vedic, Egyptian, whichever one you name. So my focus for the meditation was light and illumination, and to bring that up into the centers, and that would represent the battle against Set and overcoming him, who represents darkness. And by darkness, I don't believe, nor do I think the story, the people, the progenitors of the story believe that darkness is an evil kind of insinuates moral. So there's not a dogmatic, immoral, demonic, goofy type of of darkness. It would just be darkness, as in not the absence of light, but the opposite of light, which are two different ideas. So I focused on halfway on that, killing off of shedding away and overcome the shadowy aspects of self, and also of just the world around me, and then more on ascension to higher self during the meditation, which would be the repatterning, the man in the aspect of light kind of thing. I think it was short, maybe 30 minutes, and I went over specific things that came to mind the day before, kind of rerunning those back through, and then more specific things that I wanted to illuminate that day and then week and month and moving on to the year. These were specific to me, worldly things that I'm trying to lay the mental foundation for the projection and the creation according to the will, which was the idea around this location. I sat for quite a while, actually. It was when the sun started to go down that I realized I had missed something that I wanted to check out. It was just a personal curiosity. There's a story that is depicted to be written by Thoth high up on, I don't remember which wall it is, but it's too high to read. Anyway, I wanted to look at it. He's depicted as writing this story about an island that was destroyed in a day, and from which people, the Egyptian people, received the buildings, the mathematics, and all of their knowledge they inherited from these people that came from this island. Then we had a couple-hour drive. After that, the sun was down. We went to Luxor. I did about a 90-minute meditation on the road, and when I came back from the meditation, we were just getting into Karnak, and I had this motion sickness where I was just puking, which sometimes happens with the stop and go driving, just regular motion. And I'd like to think it was symbolic as to the cathartic purging of the events of the day, we'll say. This sketch for this day was myself meditating. The lower Dantian chakras were activated, and the solar plexus patterns out Metatron's cube with the 5 platonic solids, which are the building blocks of this reality. Rather, the shadows of the 5 platonic solids are the building blocks of the reality as far as we see it, as far as 3D or whatever you want to call it, 4D. And that would be creation, will, that type of thing, the blueprint for creation, if you will. Then I put the eye of Horus as the third eye, and the silhouette of the goddess Hathor. Although I know the focus is not on the third eye or the energy point on this whole thing, I just kind of sketched it in there. I probably won't paint this one later, actually, because I don't really like the sketch, but anyway, then I got to working on the music. This day was a bit more difficult to piece together. Some passages with the traveling and the motion and the logistical things. I sat in my room in a meditation. Then, after I got a little settled stomach or head, nauseous, settling, I went through the record, details and logistics and some of the administrative stuff, mentally rehearsing, kind of combining those types of actions. This must have went on for a while because I fell asleep just sitting up. So I woke up the next day at early in the morning. It was still dark, and I was just still sitting there with a neck ache because my chin was just on my chest. But on the bright side, sleeping like this woke me up at between 3 and 4 a.m. So I took that as a good omen to go walk through the city in the middle of the night around Luxor, and I stumbled across what they call a local cafe, which is the opposite of the tourism cafe with the Wi-Fi and the light. It's a really, really dark 24-hour, kind of like a hookah, hashish, coffee hole in the wall with rugs everywhere, no Wi-Fi. And it was really cold, but it was cozy, dim, smoky, cramped. And I just had a coffee, and it was about 4:30 a.m. and I put my sunglasses and headphones on and sat in the corner and did another meditation, undoubtedly drawing looks and vampiric suspicions while I sat there in sunglasses in the pitch black dark, but that was it.